Hi, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter on assignment. Yes, it's a beautiful place, but I am on assignment. You all will find out later in the year why. But great to be here with you today. Thank you for joining me for another edition of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast. I am your Las Vegas Raiders beat writer on Sports Illustrated. So thank you for joining me. We've got a ton of things to cover today. Got 10 of probably 12 of your questions I'm going to try to answer, but a lot of stuff. But I want to go back to Wednesday. We do a podcast every single day on this program and have done it now for a long time. And Wednesday, there was not one on Wednesday night. I want to tell you what happened. We were traveling and getting here, and that we were in a situation where there was massive tornado winds. Now, no tornadoes were seen, but tornado winds and blew a massive tree. In fact, a tree I could not even get my arms around, blew it down. It was a very, very intense situation for about 30 minutes, and all internet was completely wiped out. So it wasn't being lazy. We do one of these every single day. Did it when my brother died, do them at Christmas, do them all the time. But you deserve to know, and I wanted to explain why that there was not one Wednesday evening. But thank you. I can't believe the amount of people who emailed in and wanted to know, are you okay? That's not like you. And you're right, it wasn't. And I appreciate all of you who requested and wanted to know if everything was okay. All right, let's get right into it, because man, we've got a ton of ground to cover. So let's get going. The first one says H. Many times I've seen a player recently cut by a team, signed by another team before playing them. That's from Jason B. And he wants to know, is that coincidental? No, absolutely not. It's smart gamesmanship. You you want to be able to get somebody that can tell you, hey, here are some nuances. These are some things that are being, added or whatever. No, that's smart. And that's gamesmanship. I'm not going to tell you the team, but I remember one time there was a guy who was cut. It was very angry about it. They had cut him, and he felt like they had been done dirty. And there was a particular team that just literally called his agent, said, "Listen, we're interested in signing him." They're like, "He's interested in coming." Oh, really? Oh, yes, he's interested in coming, and he wants to be helpful. And he was, by the way. Oh yeah, that absolutely happens. 100%. That's gamesmanship. And I've seen guys signed, and then when the game's over, they get cut the next week. But they're so mad at the team. Usually, it's a team they've been with a long time, or a team that had not been very truthful with them. Oh my gosh, they're absolutely ready to sign, without a doubt. No doubt about it. All right, let's get to the next. Good question, Jason. It says, in the Aiden O'Connell versus Gardner Minshew battle, uh, I have reported many times that they were close. Do I think their closeness impacted the battle? That's from Brian T. Great question, Brian. I don't think it did, and I want to be able to. I'm going to lay out for you why. I don't think it's fair on a question like this to just say a yes or no. I think I like questions when you guys ask questions that need explanation, that need more information. You can tell some of you may be journalists. It's like if a journalist ever asks a question that's a yes or no question, unless it's a very specific issue where you just need a denial or an acceptance. You want to ask questions that require a little bit more information. Aiden O'Connell, as soon as Gardner was signed, was the first to welcome him to the team. And they are very, very close. They work together. Now, this does not preclude each of them being tremendously competitive and wanting the job. They wanted it. They desired it. They knew that, this is my job. I'm going to go win it. But they also knew we got to be Raiders first. I think both men are very smart. Matter of fact, I don't think that. I know that. And they both realize that without one person stepping up and winning it, and both guys kind of just staying at the same static place, that there's a good chance you're going to see both quarter. In fact, they've both talked about it. Gardner said it. I think it was the first time we talked to him after he was announced as the starter. Gardner said it. I don't think that Aiden's done for the year, and um, so no, I don't think it had any impact. I watched them compete every single day in training camp. Um, I saw when Aiden would make mistakes, Gardner would go right up, you know, cheer him up, not like he was hanging his head. And then I've saw Gardner and him do that to Gardner. I've seen both men point out things that maybe they thought the other one missed. I'm going to go back because I've addressed this partially before, but I think it's very imperative to tell you this. The culture that Antonio Pierce has built of complete competition, but with a complete mindset of unity. This is a unicorn, an absolute unicorn. And I'm looking forward to it. The next comes from Katiana. Katiana says, Hondo, 2 questions. I have heard you, Katiana L. I'm sorry, Katiana. Oh, no, Katiana K. Katiana says, Hondo, I've heard you several times talk about a story coming on Mark Davis and that you will give your final season prediction. Can you tell me when those stories are coming? Yes, Katiana. I'll have a story coming on Wednesday, which will be the Mark Davis story. None of you are going to want to miss this. Mark Davis has grown and gone through a metamorphosis as an owner. And I'm literally going to use an example of a grasshopper becoming a butterfly. And I'm not calling him a butterfly, but that type of metamorphosis. He's not the owner that inherited the team from his father. And if you really want to know, just kind of a little tease on it, he is more his father today than he's ever been. And I got some really interesting insight from people in the league. I think you're going to really enjoy it. I think it's a good article. I think every Raider fan needs to read it. I think you need to understand Mark Davis. And I think this is going to be really important for you to get some insight into his maturation as an NFL owner. That'll be Wednesday, and then Tuesday I'll be offering my my solid lock it in granite prediction. This is my 5th year. 3 of the 5 years I have nailed it right on the head or been 1 game off, which to me is fine. 1 year I was horrifically bad. So I'm batting 750, which is not too bad. But I need to be batting 1,000. So hopefully this year will get me up to 800 and to be able to say 4 out of 5 years I was within 1 game. So please make sure you're checking that out on Tuesday. Thank you, Katiana. The next one says to me, this is from Michael B. Hondo, do you know if the Raiders are looking at Shedeur Sanders? Yes, they are. But before you run with that, they're looking at everybody. They're literally looking at everybody. Now, there are times, for example, you can go back and find this, not this past draft, but literally it would have been the draft of 23. Right afterwards, I was asked in one of my question answer articles, who do you think the Raiders will pick next year? And I said, based on what I'm hearing, they are all over Brock Bowers. So that worked out pretty good. That was a pretty good prediction a year in advance before it happened. And I know that they're looking at everybody. I am hearing some guys that they're looking at more than others. But yes, they are looking at everybody as a possibility at every position. So there you go. That's a good question on your part. And that was from Michael B. The next one says, this is from Russ S. Hondo, would like your thoughts on Amari Gainer. Is he the 3rd best running back on the roster? Do you think there's a chance he could be a starter by the end of the year? Okay, great question. Amari Gainer has been based on preseason has been the 2nd steal of the draft. Okay, I think it's fair. Let's call him 2nd steal of the draft. Now, I still think JPJ getting him in the second round could absolutely be a steal. And the fact of where they got Brock Bowers, and again, you judge all of this 5 years down the road, I think could be the biggest steal, even though they picked him in the first round. So if you're going only today, sure, for you could put Delmar Glaze in there. But yes, I would say for sure, based on where he was picked, based on this far into the process, he's been a steal, 100%. Now, do I think he's the third best linebacker? That's not really a fair question. And I want to explain why. I don't want you to think I'm just blowing you off. Um, I don't want you to think I'm just blowing you off, Russ. Um, he's we know that Spillane is a Mike, and Tommy freaking Eichenberg, the Ohio State Buckeye, the man that would just play with no helmet, a man that comes with a warning open on game day. Wonderful kid off the field, but on the field, he just needs a t-shirt that says does not play nice with others. I mean, he embodies that old school Big Ten Ohio State linebacker, tough as nails, looks like granite. Just, yeah. And then the funny thing is, he's such a nice guy, but he literally, I mean, when he's in football mode, do you remember that show with T Rex? Not with T, but Jurassic, I think it was Jurassic World. And he's got those birds he's trying to train, raptors. He's got those raptors. And all of a sudden, the guy looks and one's looking him in the face, and he knows that that's Tommy freaking Eichenberg. Some of you guys need to make a graphic with Tommy's body with a raptor face. That's the way he plays. He's a tackling machine. He's a space eater. He is an absolute destructive force. He, I had a, I don't know if I should say, I'll say it. He is just a blitzkrieg, meaning he just goes through and wipes everything out and leaves a wake in his path. He is just that kind of guy. But he's a Mike. So do I think Gainer is as good of a Mike as Eichenberg? No. Do I think he could be? Maybe. He's that good. Do I think he's the second best outside guy with Divine Diablo? Is there a better name for a Raider than Divine Diablo? Oh, I love that name. He might be. He's not there yet. And Divine's a good player. And let me just say, it does not mean Divine's done anything wrong. It's just Gainer's done everything right. So he's got to show it in a real game, not against San Francisco's third string and second string, and quite frankly, the first string a little bit. I mean, he did really well there. But because some of that was against first and second string on the Niners, I think you have a little bit more stock. So I would say that Diablo's going to have something to say about it. He's a good football player now. But Diablo had a good camp. Diablo did nothing wrong. But Gainer, they gave him some reps at Mike too. And man, now you really got me going here, Russ. Because I don't think Eichenberg can play outside. Well, let me go back and rephrase that. I asked AP if he would play him outside, and he said, no, he's a rookie. He really doesn't want to do it. But he's done it with Amari. So let me go back and say this. I think you might be able to make an argument that he's the third best. Dadgummit. Yeah, just because he can play some Mike. I think there's a chance that Eichenberg could play some Mike too. All I'm going to say is this. The Raiders are in great shape. You got Spills and Divine Diablo as your starters with Tommy freaking Eichenberg and Amari Gainer in there, that all they need is to just get a little bit of sweat on their jersey, get some experience. Yeah, I think you could make an argument. I think you can make an argument that he's the second best, outside. That's a given. But I think you could also make an argument that he may be the third. But him and Eichenberger are right in there. I'm going to tell you right now, at no position in the Raiders, and I'm trying to think real quick. Yeah, no position on the Raiders do I think there is well, maybe receiver. But receiver or linebacker are the two deepest positions on this team. Very deep. Very, very deep. And Amari Gainer was just a brilliant addition by the Raiders. All right, let's keep moving now. It says, this is from Kenny M. Honda, with your recent reporting on venture capitalists and the impact on the NFL, what will be the impact on ticket prices? This is really cool. Now, I want to talk to you about something, and I know he's listening because he listens to my podcast every day. I have a very, very good friend who is extremely successful venture capitalist. And I thought we would get him to talk on this show. He told me literally just before we taped, he goes, he's Jewish, he's from Israel, but a huge Raider fan, and told me that because of his English, he would rather not do it. That's disappointing. I'm mad at you, brother, but you're still my buddy and still my brother. But he doesn't feel like he wants to, so I'm going to pursue a couple other angles. I want to get a venture capitalist on this show to talk about it. So, do I think it impacts ticket prices? Great question. No, and I want to tell you why. Because demand impacts ticket prices. Now, the Raiders are the most expensive ticket, and it's not because of Mark Davis. The prices for Raiders season tickets are extremely reasonable. When you look at the NFL and the stadium and all that, the problem is they all get bought up. You have casinos that buy large amounts of tickets because they want to have them for their high rollers, which is fine. I don't blame them. If I was a casino in Vegas, I'd do the same thing. And Vegas is the number one travel market. So let me ask you a question. If your team's playing in Vegas in December, do you want to go to watch them play the Bears in December? Now I'm from the Midwest. I love the snow. I love it. Give me snow, give me ice, give me all of that. Not this behind me. Give me the snow and the cold and oh, outdoor bonfires and you know sled dogs and I mean rabbit hunting and 2 foot of snow with a bunch of beagles and I'm a happy guy. But that being said, 99% of people, and I realize I'm an anomaly. My wife is even a Michigander, and of course she would rather go to the heat, but um people want to go to Vegas. There's just more to do. There's shows, there's fine dining, there's everything in Vegas. So it's a destination city. So demand impacts the tickets, not ownership or value of franchises. I hope that makes sense to you. That is a great question, by the way, Kenny. And I do want you to know that, yes, I am trying. It's hard. We're going to get a venture capitalist on, I promise. I know enough of them. One of them is going to say, I'll do it. But some of them don't want to do it because they are potentially going to invest and think it's best to just keep a low profile. And like I said, or maybe I'll do it, but my English isn't good. I don't want to do it. So for whatever reason, but we're working on it. Next, this one comes from Carlos P, not Carlos, Carlos P. It says, if the Raiders install their playbook in OTAs, minicamp, and training camp and cut a guy, um, won't teams, if they sign him, know the team's plans? Great question, Carlos. Thank you for asking, and I'm looking forward to answering this one. You go into OTAs with your game plan. Okay. Now, this is the very basis of the game plan. Then you go into mini camp and you really install more. Then you get to training camp and begin to expand it. So after training camp, post training camp, the foundation of the playbook is laid. So the foundation may be, okay, we're going to be an outside zone running team. We're going to do a lot of play action. We're going to do 12 personnel. We're going to do, take our shots down the field. The route tree. Everybody knows the route tree. But then you've got those 2 weeks leading up to the season. Then you begin to install. Now, I don't have one here. I've got a playbook. I should have brought it. I apologize. But the playbook, then you get into week one and you install the playbook, the game plan for week one. Now, you put basic stuff. Everybody knows the basic plays running a 12 personnel. That is all of the install. All of it through OTAs, mini camp, training camp. That's all of the install. Then when you get to week one, you get it used to be a 3-ring binder, probably anywhere from 1 inch to 3 inches thick, with all of the plays for week one. Some of it may be stuff you did, but it's a lot of new stuff and stuff that's put in. Now, each week throughout the season, you get more playbook. And I was told under, for example, Josh McDaniels, the offensive playbook, when you got towards the end of the year, could be 3 or 4 3-ring notebooks at one point. Now, a lot of teams are just going straight to iPads. But my point is, it's that big. Now, let me tell you why that's a big deal. Let's say you're in week 15, and all of a sudden you get the weekly game plan and you're at halftime and like, listen, we got to make an adjustment. Or you're in the third quarter and you got to make an adjustment. All right, remember the play we installed in training camp that was just a base play? We haven't run it all year. We're running that. This is why every Friday morning before a game, these guys are tested on the game plan. They take written tests. Do they know the game plan? Do you understand it? Do you have it? Because I know guys who've been ineligible to play, didn't dress because they failed the Friday game plan test, or didn't fail it, but certainly didn't get a good score. Because if you're in the fourth quarter and you got to call a play that you haven't seen in 15 weeks, or if it goes back to OTAs, it could literally be as long as 23 weeks or 24 weeks, 25 weeks maybe. So it expands over the entirety of the season. So no, there isn't really a worry about if a guy gets cut after training camp and knows, because that's all he knows is the foundation. Imagine if you've ever built a home. I'm sure most of us have, but if you've ever built a home, when you walk up and you see the concrete foundation, you don't really know what the house is going to look like. You just see the foundation. That's what you know coming out of training camp. And last week, they started to install it. There'll be more on Tuesday, and then obviously going forward with the rest of the season. That was a really, really good question. And that one came from Carlos P. The next comes from Ryan M. It says, you talked about the Raiders being investors and gamblers. How does that apply to extensions? Great one. You saw with Andre James this year, every Raider that was eligible for free agency, they were willing to keep. They offered them what they thought the market's top value was. The Raiders are in no way cheap with their players. No way cheap with their players at all. Not even close. But as it started to get closer and they got an understanding of, wait a minute, we should probably relook at this. I think Andre James is going to be worth a little bit more in free agency than we thought. Boom, they upped their price. They signed him. So I think right now there are guys that they're thinking, yeah, we would like to re-sign them. I also think that some of those guys, they want to, I think some of those guys, they want to wait a little bit to say, okay, your production, let's use Malcolm Kuntz for a minute. I think Malcolm Kuntz is going to have a monster year. I just want to make that really clear. But he's got a half a year of film performing at a high place. Years ago, Scott Mitchell was a backup quarterback for Dan Marino at Miami. And he goes and had a house of fire. Marino gets hurt. He plays great. Well, the Lions go pay him a humongous contract based on a short window, and he never really lived up to it. There's a danger to paying too quickly. So I think, although I do think that Malcolm is part of the long-term plan, I think it's okay. We'd rather gamble a little bit and probably have to pay the guy a little bit more money to see a little bit continuation than to pay him and have it be just a half a season wonder. I don't think there's any concern about Kuntz. I can tell you right now, I know this for a fact. Kuntz is part of the long-term plan. But there are other guys too. And there are some other guys that have played good, but also have some weaknesses in their game. And they've talked to some of those guys. Hey, you know what? We want to extend you, but these are some things we want to see you work on early. Work on these things, and we'll take care of business. The next one comes to us from Preston V. Preston says, Hondo, I would like your opinion on Davante Adams with all of the new deals for wide receivers. He's going to make $28 million this year. Do you think the Raiders should give him a raise and extend him? No. Next one. Hondo, quick question. I saw Josh Jacobs come out with some information saying he offered the Raiders a chance to match the Green Bay offer. The Raiders said no. What are your thoughts on the Josh Jacobs situation? I'm going to say that I know that to be pretty accurate, but missing, and I'm not blaming the reporter at all. I thought it was great reporting. But Josh is conveniently, in my opinion, leaving out some important details. Let's just say that I believe the Raiders made him an offer that they had reason to believe he would accept. And when that didn't happen, and then other deals are brought back, I just think it was best for the Raiders that Josh Jacobs is not here. And I think it's best for Josh Jacobs that he's not here. And I like Josh. Anyone that knows me knows I like Josh. I just think the relationship had become toxic, if you really want to know the truth. Not toxic, that's the wrong word. I think the relationship had become acrimonious. And in my opinion, based on the information that I have, and I don't just have information from the Raiders management perspective, I've got information from people that I know that are a player perspective, a coach perspective. And based on talking to those people, I think the Raiders did everything. In fact, I think their offer was too much. And had they signed him to that, I would have been very critical. I just think it's best. Again, I think everybody has a point of view. And I don't think Josh is lying. I don't think the Raiders are lying. I think there's some information being left out from Josh's end, and the Raiders are just moving on. He's not a Raider. So there you go. Next one comes to us from Pete S. Says, Hondo, I want to become a member of your Las Vegas Raiders Insider podcast on YouTube, but I cannot find where to join on my phone. Okay, very quickly, let me just say this. I know people are mocking it. That's fine. I don't really care, to be quite honest. If you're mocking me, you're leaving somebody else alone. But we are not changing anything with our daily podcast. But we have some people who just randomly joined the YouTube page. It's $4.99 a month, and I wanted to do something nice for them. So we're adding a new feature 24 times a year. And I've heard some people are having trouble finding a join button because they're using an Apple phone. I don't know if it's an Apple product, all Apple products, or just the Apple phone. So that's all I can tell you. But appreciate all of you who have joined and are joined. And if you're not, don't you worry. You're not losing one bit of content. Nothing changes for you. We're not doing this. Oh, we're taking this away. Now you got to pay. No, we're not doing that. So it still remains absolutely free, and the frequency and the depth and level of content will not change one bit. Thanks everybody, and thank you for asking. Again, that was Pete S. The next one, uh, it says Hondo. This is from Louis V. Hondo, is it crazy to believe Gardner Minshew could thrive in a Getsy offense? Great question. Let me just say this one. Luke Getsy can draw up the plays, coach the plays. He can't execute the plays. Now, it's important to have a system that your guys can do. For example, my son Shane, in his sophomore year of college, there's zero issue talking physics with him, but I don't ask physics of Dexter. Doesn't mean Dexter's stupid. He's 2. So you can't have a system that's so complicated that your guys can't run it, or you don't have the people to run it. But also, you got to have a system, if you have the people who can run it, that you're teaching. They're teaching it wonderfully. Talking to a lot of players, a lot of people in the organization, everybody's happy with it. I think you're going to see a lot of interesting stuff come out of it. Yeah, I think Gardner can flourish. Now, I base future expectation on past performance. And he's done it in the NFL. He's a creator. Now he's going to have to go against his natural instinct, which is he's a gunslinger who hasn't had the success of a Brett Favre. That's just the way it is. And so, do I think he could thrive in it? I really sincerely do, because it's so creative. I think Aiden could thrive in it. I don't think Luke Getsy's offense is going to have anything to do with the success or failure of the quarterback this year. I think it's going to be on them and personnel. I sincerely believe it. Next one comes to us from Bryce H. I know a Bryce H. I wonder if this is the one. Bryce H says to me, Hondo, Brock Bowers, will he play week 1 or no? Yes. Yep. Going to play week 1. Next one. This comes from Todd H. Hondo, you've said repeatedly this offseason Jakobi Meyers was the best offensive player on the Raiders. Do you still stand by it? Yes. He's just been the best offensive player, most consistent, everything. Jakobi Meyers has been an absolute star. I think this is going to be a breakout year for Jakobi Meyers. I think last year there was a lot of, I think he started to have a breakout year, and I'm going to get into all that after this year. But yeah, I think Jakobi Meyers been the best offensive player, been absolutely wonderful. Next one comes to us from Vanessa A. Vanessa A says, Hondo, thought it was pretty cool when it was mentioned that Jakobi Meyers would be the backup third quarterback. I remember when you said it, people mocking you for it. And I thought it was cool that it happened. Also, watching Tyreek and Ramel Keaton make this team, Amari Gaynor, and other surprise players, every one of them I'd heard you talk about. Just wanted to tell you I appreciate that. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. And when we get it wrong, and I'm going to mention one in a minute, it's important for us to be accountable. If we're going to read the emails when we got it wrong, we need to be accountable. A couple days ago on the podcast, I mentioned Brandon Faison had been an all-pro. That is not accurate, and I need to explain where my mistake came from. And by the way, explaining where a mistake came from, no excuse. Should not have said it. In 21, he was being considered as an alternate, and I forgot he didn't get it. So that's where my mindset was, but I don't get that room. If I'm going to make that statement, I need to. So I apologize to you, Raider Nation. I don't mind mentioning it that I said it because I did, and I don't mind being accountable for saying it. I did, and I remember being part of the conversation with him being an alternate, and I just missed it. And I will. And when I do, I'm going to look you straight in the eyes because you deserve it. All right, everybody, listen. Can you believe this? 8 days, well, depending on when you're watching this, but it's the Saturday before the start of the season. Man, it's almost here. Isn't this a great time of year? So I appreciate all of you. God bless you. Thank you for listening. Remember, if you become a member, once you do, it'll pop up a members only video for you to watch. You need to follow it. And to all of you that are members, we're going to have a special video tomorrow just for you about our very first special event. Make sure you're checking it out. Appreciate all of you again. I hope you're having a wonderful day. God bless you all. We'll see you tomorrow.